Issue 232. We started with a repeat of when Ixis was first cheered for by the crowd, and the reason I know this is a repeat is that Sonic says that the crowd isn't cheering for him, just like last time, only this time Ixis doesn't teleport away, so he managed to break the stable time loop, all while not questioning living the same experience again. Out of complete nowhere, Elias says he won't give up the crown to Ixis because Ixis served under his family for so long. Ixis lampshades that jarring shift in his stance, and then Sonic shows up lampshading, "Have you lost your minds? Nagas is the bad guy!" And he doesn't proceed to explain why, which he clearly needs to do for these idiots in the situation. So this gives Jeffrey an opportunity to say that since the people can choose their council, they should be able to choose their king too. And that's why democracy fails. Sonic asks the crowd, "You want to shake things up when the death egg is flying around? You really want to do this when Sally's been roboticized?" Jeffrey looks unhappy, since he was in love with her, and asks to tell himself to focus on trying to settle this first and then worry about saving her. It's as if he'll ever be allowed to save her. So he's conflicted. By the way, we see Ash comforting Mina in the scene, so we're never gonna learn what his tragic backstory was. So that's a plot thread that's forever left dangling. Sonic explains the situation, and one of Ixis' old buddies talks him in his mind, saying that he should seize the opportunity. Ixis says opportunity out loud without even whispering it, when nobody but him can see the wizards in his head, so really he should look suspicious here. He's told that he can make Elias look even weaker, and rudely says to the crowd that they don't want a king who's distracted by loss and heartbreak. Sonic says, "Do you have any class?" And somehow, Ixis saying this so insensitively doesn't make the crowd turn on him. I'm guessing his brainwashing power only works when he's talking persuasively. He says that by Elias' own admission, he has lived only to serve the kingdom with all his power. The crowd cheers as Jeffrey gives him the crown, saying that Ixis can save the princess and be Eggman, except he won't ever be allowed to do that. By the way, he's always going to be welcome as the king. That's never going to get resolved. When Sonic accuses Jeffrey of not caring about Sally and betraying everything she lived for, Jeffrey says that he can't let all he's lost distract him. Sonic says sarcastically that he's a real hero, and Jeffrey just tells him to grow up, not even trying to explain himself. Amy finally points out that Ixis' magic crystallized half Bunny's body. Ixis says that it was a minor mistake in the heat of battle, and Ixis tells the crowd that they'll all go to the hospital to check on Bunny, talking all triumphantly without looking concerned to remotely look convincing as a good guy. Again, this is why the Ixis stuff fails. Elias tells Sonic to see to Bunny, finally back to his good design without the crown on his head, and says that he needs to get back to the castle and take care of things. He knows he can't take Ixis, so I guess he's going to evacuate his family from the castle. Why can't he just say that? Elias agonizes over telling his mother and father, and while Ixis says that he'll turn the crystallized bunny back to normal, Antoine gets furiously overprotective of her. Dr. Quack reasons that since medicine can't help her, they need Ixis to do this, even though he at least doesn't like it. Sonic asks Nicole to open the wall so the crowd can see this farce and doesn't get a response from her. So along with Rotor asking Nicole for his nanisuit in the middle of the council room when she doesn't look like she's there, does that mean Nicole can hear someone in the city anytime they say her name and talk to her, or talk about her, regardless of where they are in relation to her? What's it like for her when multiple different conversations about her are happening at once? How can she possibly understand what's being said when it's difficult to listen to even two conversations at once? We're never going to get any sort of insight on this, on what's like in Nicole's mind. Even when we saw her alone briefly when she was crying before Dimitri talked to her, we never exactly saw, like, thought bubbles in her head talking about what the people were saying about her. Oh good, Nicole does open the wall, so they're not trying to imply that she can't use her nanites anymore. That would have been stupid. And speaking of stupid, Bunny gets turned totally organic again, which was apparently an accident by Ixis. Now this concept by itself isn't stupid. It's heartwarming seeing Bunny get to experience life being fully organic again, but only for a little while. The problem is that this is basically killing her off, just like with Sally, because it robbed her of her only usefulness. We're never gonna see her get her cyborg parts back, ever, even though that would be like one panel. Even though Rotor Tails should be able to make some for her, and in fact didn't Nate do that when her original cyborg parts desynced with her nervous system? Instead, she's arbitrarily going to stay this way the rest of the comic and be unhappy about being useless when a solution could easily be thought up in 2 seconds. I mean, name one time she was useful without using her cyborg parts. That wasn't the time she randomly got an antidote for poison sumac itchiness. Exactly. I knew this was going to happen ahead of time, but I didn't think it would be that fast. I thought we'd get to keep Bunny as we know her around for a little while after losing Sally. Instead, both of the girls that aren't game characters are basically dead. Ixis gets confused about how he made a mistake in his spell despite being a very experienced wizard. And Jeffrey says quietly, "You meant to do that. Totally intentional." This causes Ixis to take advantage of Bunny's tears of joy, saying that he's rewarding her, even though he clearly had a confused expression earlier that I guess the crowd didn't see. Maybe what happened was that one of the wizards in his mind took control of him and made the spell turn organic because he knew that he would be able to take advantage of that as a PR thing, and because making Bunny useless would be like, well, I hate the freedom fighters, so you aren't going to be useful anymore. It's like that. But that's never explained. Sonic appreciates that Bunny got something good out of it, never mind that Eggman's still around. And when he's asked for a plan to save Sally because he's the new plan thinker apparently, he tells his friends to fill in the council and everyone else about Sally, while he'll do the rescue plan, which he doesn't tell anyone about. He runs off before it can be pointed out to him that he was the only other one on the Death Egg and they don't know the details. Sonic races to Freedom HQ and tells Nicole to patch him through to Angel Island because he needs to see Knuckles. And he reminds her that the city needs to be patched up too. Then there's a sad moment, as Nicole talks to Sonic from the computer just by using emotionless text, which gives off a feeling of her being slightly traumatized as she tries to act emotionless and numb about how she was there when Sally sacrificed herself. Why is there the ping pong bar on her screen all the time? What's that for? Sonic looks sad, and says that he needs to get in touch with Knuckles to get Sally back, and orders her to tell him to open a warp ring to Freedom HQ. Nicole doesn't respond, and just opens the warp ring as Sonic continues to look sympathetic about her hiding behind text and says that they'll talk later, which they never do. It's really sweet to see Sonic all sympathetic at someone sad and saying they'll talk about it later, when normally he's not the type to be patient and stay still at all. Julie says Sonic's here and asks if she's done playing operator now. Knuckles thanks her, calling her Sue as a nickname, which I think is the only time he does that. And Knuckles says that Mighty and Ray took a warp ring and is nice enough to send them letters through it. And Sonic just stepped through the spare, so they might not even have another warp ring. We see text saying that Sonic was explaining everything to Knuckles, but then Knuckles still blames Sonic for what happened to Sally. Never mind the fact that Sally had no choice but to do that to stop the Death Egg from firing since she had such a stupid plan, and she ran off on her own while Sonic was busy with robots. No, just blame Sonic, you jerk! Knuckles asks why he wasn't told about the Death Egg, and Sonic says that he would see it coming, since he was on Angel Island after all. Julie tries to get Knuckles to calm down, at least she's not as hot-headed as he is, and when Sonic asks for a warp ring to save Sally, Knuckles says, "No way, that's a bad idea." Sonic is absolutely flabbergasted at that kind of response, but at least Knuckles tries to justify it, showing intelligence that he never has anymore. He says that 1, Sonic has to know exactly where he's going to use it. Wait, what? Why? He'd always know where he's going to use it because he always knows where he is. Or I guess what that means is he knows what something that... Or I guess what the text is trying to say is that you have to be able to imagine clearly the location before you can warp to it. But Sonic has been in the Death Egg, so he would be able to do that, you idiot. Knuckles says that if Eggman hid a whole Death Egg from him, who knows what else he's got hidden in there for him. He's been in the Death Egg before, so I think he's out of surprises. And if Sonic bungles this, Eggman could get the warp ring and use it against the heroes to disastrous consequences, even though Sonic can run at the speed of sound, and so if he just does that really fast, couldn't that prevent him from getting the warp ring? Plus he could hide it in his spines. I'm really surprised that none of Knuckles' stupid reasons were, Metal Sally isn't exactly gonna let you take her home. Well, if Sonic could pick her up, she'd try to fight back. That's what he should have said, instead of looking like an idiot. Sonic calls him out that if this was about finding all his ancestors, he'd be all for it. Julie then turns on him, saying that's not so simple. Dimitri had told them about what happened to the Brotherhood, and so they tried to use a warp ring to rescue them, but it failed because the Brotherhood being around wouldn't be enough like the games. Also because even though they knew where to go, it wouldn't transport them for no reason. Finidus must have made it so that the warp ring wouldn't send anyone to where they were to rescue them just in case. Instead of saying that, to clarify, Julie says that Finidus invented them, so he must have some special way of getting them to work between zones. And they haven't thought about holding it towards the Master Emerald, which would be like a super powerful gem. They haven't thought of powering it up with that? Really? You mean the warp ring doesn't naturally transport you to zones? Why not? Julie's point to Knuckles was that even if it had worked, they'd have no idea what dangers were on the other side. Yeah, you didn't know. Even though you grew up in the Twilight Cage, you dolt. Tell him! You'd think she'd be familiar with the Twilight Cage. Why would she assume that it changed? She has no evidence. Do you think the warp ring would be programmed to be more like the Zone Link teleporter that Scourge used to kidnap Antoine? That teleporter shows you what's on the other end of the portal so you know exactly where you're headed. So Boober, who is an alternate rotor, mind you, effortlessly made a more functional teleporter than the Echidnas did, despite having less advanced technology. Although to be fair, it could have stolen some technology from Anti-Knuckles' city. But still, if Boomer can make a better transporter, then so can Rotor. Knuckles says that they have to wait for an opportunity, refusing to give him the warp ring that could have feasibly let Sonic just tie Metal Sally up and come back home with her in seconds to super speed. Because the writer wanted to drag out the Metal Sally arc to ridiculous proportions. I guess that wouldn't be epic enough. I'm gonna keep count of this, because it's gonna happen a lot. Knuckles could have had better reasoning than, I'm scared, it's dangerous, I have no faith in you. He could have mentioned that Sonic doesn't have any rope on him or duct tape to restrain Metal Sally, though he could just find it. So warping her home would just cause her to cause trouble, and they should wait until they have a means of disabling her or dear-bossizing her first, because she could just attack the city if he tried to get her there, and attack him if he tried to get her there in the first place. But no, he doesn't say that at all. So Sonic leaves in a huff. And you'd think that, okay, if it's Knuckles being stupid, well then everyone else around him is also being just as stupid because they're not mentioning the good reasons against this either. That's out of character for Julie. Julie tells Knuckles with her arm around him that she knows his past with Sally, out of nowhere, so she'd be willing to talk with him about all this if he's upset. After her display of compassion, Knuckles orders to contact the others and put the whole island on guard. And Charmy naturally asks, is Sonic not our friend anymore? If so, I wouldn't blame him. Knuckles cares so much about Sally that he's refusing to let her get rescued. You'd think that he would do anything to save her. But, to be fair, he loves Julie, not her. When Sonic comes back, Tails says happily that Antoine just got Jeffrey arrested for treason. Considering that Jeffrey's serving under Ixis, who's in charge now, that came out of complete nowhere. Couldn't Jeffrey just shadow meld his way out of any cell? Or Ixis just save him from a cell? Why are they excited about this at all? Snively says that the reserve power is holding, and while the Death Egg lost a lot of energy, they're making up for some of it now that they've launched Titan Metal Sonic. I guess just having the robot around was making the Death Egg use up energy. Huh? How? He says the damage is the Death Egg combines the Death Egg. He says the damage is largely contained to the roboticizer chamber, but there's wiring issues throughout the Death Egg apparently. So I guess that's what the largely was for. As I expected, Eggman was ignoring Snively's warnings that their Death Egg is barely flying. Eggman says that the Eggmites will handle the repairs. Wait, so that means that he made nanobots too? And it's never referenced again. Also, they'll find the Emerald, and he has a whole network of refueling depots prepared well before he thought of using the Emerald. Snively says that if he's going to distract himself working on just one robot, he'll take full... Snively says that if Eggman's going to distract himself working on just one robot, he'll take full advantage of the situation. He says this out loud, despite being intimidated of him earlier. Somehow this doesn't cause Eggman to get angry and suspicious of him. Eggman says that Sally had exposed the heart of the Freedom Fighters, and he planned to make the most of that, as he takes a blowtorch to Metal Sally to do some alterations on her. I'd say that this would make her un-deroboticizable, but the BAM had no problem with that anyways, so now anything goes. It'd be bullshit if this was a problem for the heroes now. Then we see Bunny angsting to Antoine in fetal position about how, while she's her again, she misses being a cyborg. She loved soaring through the sky. Now here she is, grounded. Antoine says she just needs some time to adjust, and Bunny says that being a freedom fighter is her life, and it means everything to her. As we see her attacking a swap bot with her arm in a flashback. So, she's not always gonna get to be a freedom fighter. Like, eventually, Eggman's gonna get defeated. What's she gonna do then? She naturally asks, "What good am I now?" Antoine reassures her that he has no special powers, but he still does his part. Barely. He flies a plane, and he has a sword that just started working against robots, and now Eggman has an army of organic beings working for him, so he's not allowed to hit them accurately with it. He has no special powers, and he's practically useless. How is that comforting? Bunny says that she feels so weak and fragile, remembering that she used to summon force fields to protect herself from fire like nothing. Antoine idiotically says that it wasn't the cyborg parts that made her strong, she was strong all along. Right! Everyone knows that she can fly, create force fields, and extend her arms as an organic. What terrible logic. You couldn't have suggested that Rotor could make a force field generator for her? He hugs her heartwarmingly, saying that she'll find a way to contribute. Bunny says, "Y'all ain't getting rid of me that easily." Yes, we will. And Antoine says forebodingly that as long as they're together, everything will be fine. That's so reassuring to someone who knows what's coming. This issue is by Ian Flynn. It's about Ixis accidentally returning Bunny to being fully organic when he tries to get her uncrystallized, and she stays that way to try to fully appreciate it, I guess, despite briefly angsting about her usefulness being completely robbed of her later in the issue. I would be fine with this change if it was only for a few issues, and then Tails or Rotor made her a cyborg again later, but instead, Flynn drags it out to infinity. Get used to that. Then Knuckles refuses to give Sonic the warp ring that would let him save Sally, but rather than it being because she's still a robot and would just fight back and cause trouble, and doesn't have anything to restrain her or disable her, Knuckles just insists that it's too risky. So, Knuckles just has the stupidest reasoning behind not giving it to him. I guess he doesn't really care about Sally as much as he does because Sonic's willing to do anything to save her. I hope Sonic stopped being friends with him after this. If there's any reason for them to go back to being bitter enemies, it's a betrayal like this. This all happened because Flynn wanted to drag out the Metal Sally nonsense to infinity. This is even worse than when Penders dragged out the Chaos Knuckles arc. Because padding or not, that still got finished. Also, Nicole's naturally heartbroken at what happened to Sally, and is hiding behind text saying in a computer, because she doesn't want to look weak by showing her emotions better and crying in front of Sonic. I love Sonic's sympathetic reaction to her here. And Jeffrey gets arrested for treason even though Ixis is the king now, so don't patronize me again, comic. This has to be too good to be true. I knew that when I first read it. Next up, we're going back to Sonic Universe again for Scourge Lockdown, an arc so good that I've even heard game purists praise it, in spite of it not having a single game character in it. So I'm looking forward to it, for the most part anyways.